Well, welcome to another episode of The Electric Bison. Here I am out in Helena, Montana, living the life of Riley. Things are going pretty good. It's the 4th of July weekend, and our country's just gotten over the whole process of watching President Trump's big, beautiful bill get sent through the Senate and then through the House, and soon it'll become law. I know a lot of people are really upset about how it was done and what was accomplished with it, and there'll be major efforts made to put sugarcoating on it, no doubt. But I've been thinking about it a lot. And I think there's a few things that are worth saying about it. The first thing is, I think that a lot of us who have put great faith in our fellow Americans are pretty disappointed at how cold that whole process really was. I mean, it was down and dirty. They made a decision to stick it to the little guy, and they did. And even if the little guy voted for Trump, it'll take a while for the little guy to believe that, but that's exactly what happened. And the big guy, the people with lots of money, they made a lot of money, especially with that pass through from their corporations. They can take ordinary income now and just make a killing off of this bill. And the bill, it really basically makes permanent what had been temporary for 5 years. It had been very costly to our country, and there's no evidence that it had been any good for the country generally. Good for a few people that made money off of it, but not for the country. So having that happen on one hand, and then have the people that really need medical help hurt badly by having their Medicaid restricted or ended in such a way that it happens after the next congressional election. That was a good one. So they won't have a chance to really think about it till after they vote for the people that just did it to them. It's really cynical, and it makes you wonder, what kind of people are these? They really are interested in money. Yeah, pretty cold, no doubt about it. But I've given it a lot of thought, and I've always felt that just because there's people like that out there that will do that and will show us just how mean and nasty they are, that doesn't mean we have to be that way. And I don't think being that way is the best way. I think incompetence and cruelty go hand in hand, and I don't want to be cruel, and I never want to be incompetent. So with that kind of a background in mind, I'd like to just throw a few thoughts out. The first thing is, we all talk about whether or not health care is a right. And people get all excited about whether health care is a right. Well, I think it is. But, saying that it's a right doesn't get us there. If you look at the numbers of doctors and nurses that are required to give us the health care that we need right now, we're really short. We're short, 20,000 doctors at least, maybe 70,000 nurses. And those are really conservative numbers. And it takes a long time to make a doctor, to make a nurse. And for us to say that we have health care as a right and then vote whether or not to make the money available is not good enough. We have to really do the hard work of planning the educational institutions and the ways ahead for young doctors and nurses to get into their profession and get really good at it. I was fortunate to have treatment by a group of nurses and surgeons in Missoula at the International Heart Institute 4 weeks ago. They were just really good. They're really good at what they do, and they're right here in good old Montana. And in my mind right now, they represent kind of the high end of what we can offer. I know there's a bunch of good ones down in Billings too. But we have to think about all the people that are in the land, the country in between that are underserved, that won't get access either because they don't have the insurance, or they don't have the Veterans Administration or Medicare or some program to help pay for it. And then they got to get there. So if we're going to do this and start, John, about being medical care is a right for all of us, we need to do the hard work to make sure doctors and nurses are trained and educated and available. And we're not doing that. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, we're not doing it. And we need to do it. That's part of being competent. So rather than get mad at the people who voted for that big bill just so that their friends could walk off with a ton of money, and the people that rely on Medicare get hurt, they'll get hurt really bad. I think we should try to just keep trying to talk to each other about the best way to build up our medical infrastructure. The first thing I would suggest is we have a cap on residencies, what Medicare pays for residencies for young doctors. And right now, I think the last count, there was about 3,300 doctors 2 years ago that couldn't get into a residency after they'd gotten that far in their medical education. Well, without a medical residency, you can't become a doctor. You can't become a graduate trained doctor, the specialty, and so you just get frustrated. So we need to take care of that bottleneck, and it's quite a large sum of money. There's about a need for about 20,000 residencies to be paid for in addition by Medicare, and that's a large sum of money. That's $3.3 billion. And so maybe that's something that is the Republicans that voted for this god-awful bill. I can't believe they did it. It's really incompetent. But as they get hammered for doing what they've just done, going along with Trump, maybe an early option that they can express some support for medical care for the everyday American is to start making money available to pay for these Medicare residencies. And we need 20,000 of them. We need at least 3,300, but we need 20,000 to meet the requirements for doctors, down the road a little bit. So if we get started on that, they'll start building the number of doctors that we have. The number of nurses that are required is about 3-4 times the number of doctors, at least. And I'm not sure if there's any bottlenecks there, but I do know that in Montana, we have 2 new medical schools, one in Great Falls and one down in Billings. And they're doing their best to crank out some new doctors in addition to the Witchy Whammy program that, you start at Bozeman and you go through 1 year at Missoula, and then you become part of the whole University of Washington setup. That seems like it's been around as long as I have been, and it's a good old standby, but I think it's not cranking out the number of doctors that we need. And so what we need to do is during this time, this next 2 years, where everybody's going to be just madder than hell at each other about how poorly Montanans have been treated by the Republicans. Instead of doing that, we need to work together to figure out a way to make sure those 2 medical schools in Billings and Great Falls are successful, that they have a place for their people, they have residencies. And I'm not talking about starting a new medical school. I'm talking about making sure the ones that are just started, when we had Medicaid for, 300,000 Montanans, that they will be successful. Do what we can. And if you get close to the whole Medicaid question here in Montana, a lot of really good work's been done dovetailing the efforts of hospitals, and universities, so that we can get the most out of the Medicaid dollar. And I think if one thing we might try to do working together here in Montana is try to pick up the lost federal money, do the best we can to pick it up, to keep the momentum going behind our Medicaid effort here in Montana, because it's pretty cool what's been accomplished by the legislature, Republican and Democrat, and by the doctors in the hospitals. See if we can't just, instead of just letting it all fall apart because there's no federal money anymore, pick up that lost federal money with our state money. See if we can't do it for a year or two and get us over the hump, and then try to get people into a public office 2 years out that will actually take another look at how badly Medicaid really is needed by our people. One thing that struck me about this whole situation was how people that are quite wealthy have made a whole lot of pocket change. Really, they don't even need the money, seriously. They're making a killing. And I think those are the ones that if we have to start jacking up the cost to do with medical coverage, those are the ones that should pay. They should pay. They've enjoyed watching people squirm when they walked off with their dough. If I get in there, nah, they're the first ones that are going to have to pay. So they're not going to be voting for me, but those are the people that we want to stick it to pay for this medical coverage that we don't have right now. Now, I've said my piece. I just want to tell you how happy I am with the medical profession, at least the people that worked on us in Missoula. I say us because right after I finished at the International Heart Institute, my brother Pat decided he'd go in there too. Both of us have really good cholesterol counts, all that, we're in good shape. He does yoga every day. He's better shape than I am, but we're both in pretty good physical shape. So we were both surprised by the fact that we had these clogged arteries and veins. It must have been something to do with our hereditary, our ancestry. And as soon as I got my tests and they decided they needed to do this open heart with me, Pat went in there and had his tests and found out the same thing. So he's in there now. He's about 3.5 weeks behind me, and we're comparing notes. But I'll tell you what, we got first-class treatment at that International Heart Institute in Missoula. And I would like to have it so that every Montanan, if they need something like that, have access to it and can get it. So that's what my mind is. And people can talk about healthcare accessibility all they want, but it takes hard work, it takes working together, and it takes still trying to be respectful when you think the person that just did the worst thing in the world is the most despicable character that ever walked the face of the earth. We need to work together to make this happen for Montana. Thanks.